We'll use the iOS simulator to demonstrate MiniECal. When you tap on MiniECal and launch it for the first time, you are presented with a splash screen that gives you a couple of options. One is you can tap on the server settings button in the toolbar down here to set up the connection information with your Exchange server. If you've never run MiniECal before, you really have to do this the first time. Once you've done this, however, anytime you launch MiniECal later, you can just go right to the Start Using button, and you'll be able to, all your saved server information will be loaded, and you'll be able to connect right away. So for the first time that you're going to use this, we'll tap on Server Settings, and you're presented with a screen that lets you specify your Exchange server, your username on the Exchange system, your password, and the domain name associated with your Exchange server. A note about the domain, which is noted down here, is that it should be the fully qualified domain name. So it would be domain name dot, say, yourcompany.com instead of just domain name. The server string that you enter is going to contain the DNS name of your server as well as a slash, capital E, capital W, capital S, another slash, capital E, the word exchange.asmx. This is a standard URL for what is called Exchange Web Services, and it's how MiniECal talks to your Exchange server. There's a chance this might be different, and you should check with your Exchange administrator if you don't have success connecting using the basic instructions I'm giving you here. Once you have the server string specified, you can enter your username. So if my username is Bob, I'd put Bob there. You'd put a password for Bob, and if you put a password in this screen, it will save it for the duration of the session that you have with this MiniECal. So as long as MiniECal is running and you have a password in this field, it'll be cached and you won't have to enter it. And then again, down here, domain. So using the example above, my domain name might be exchange.yourserver.com. Again, you'd put in your own domain name for your Exchange server. Forget password after minutes is a setting that will remove the password from memory after so many minutes, and this is here in case your Exchange administrator would prefer that you didn't have your password cached on your mobile device all the time, and you can set a time after which you'll be prompted for your password if you need to authenticate again. Allow untrusted SSL. Hopefully you won't have to use this. This is meant for when you're using test Exchange environments. There might be a case where the Exchange server you're connecting to doesn't quite have a fully signed SSL certificate associated with it, in which case the standard HTTP connection routines in the Apple SDK would reject the connection. If you turn that on, you won't have to worry about that for those types of test environments. But if you're using a production Exchange system, you should not need to turn that on. When you are done with these settings, you tap the Done button, and they're now saved, and you can begin connecting. Assuming you've put in valid connection information, you can begin using MiniECal. Just a very quick summary of the features that were carryovers from version 1.0. MiniECal gives you three different views into the Exchange system. One is the calendar of the person who has entered their credentials. So in this case, this is Bob. You can also do a query of somebody else's agenda. And finally, there's an option for looking at a group of people at the same time, and you specify the group in a screen that we'll show in a little bit. I want to talk briefly about the Me view, if you will. If I put in valid information for a small connection information for a small fictitious company that has 5 people. Bob happens to be the owner, the head honcho, if you will. I can use standard pull to refresh to bring down the most recent information about Bob's agenda, and we see that in this view we see what Bob has today, what Bob has tomorrow, and any meetings that Bob needs to respond to. Just to show you a little more, if I go and config when I'm in this mode, I can specify how far in advance we'll look. So you see I have 5 days in here. This means that in the next 5 days Bob doesn't have any meetings he hasn't responded to. I'd like to reiterate at this point that we only show for the person who's logging in their information for today and tomorrow and the meetings they need to respond to as something that isn't necessarily done with the built-in calendar. For all other calendaring functions, the built-in calendar that comes with your iPhone is going to be the best option for interacting with the things on your own agenda. So this is just a small convenience that we have here. One of the other things that we can do now in version 1.2 is we can put this iPhone into landscape mode just by rotating it, and we'll see a graphical representation of Bob's agenda. As we rotate into landscape orientation, we'll see that Bob's agenda shows up it looks like a weekly format here. It's the number of days that are in the query range. If I had more days, I'd be able to scroll side to side. As it is, I can scroll up and see what else Bob has. And right now his agenda is not that heavy, and you'll see the meetings he has. In this mode, I can tap on any of the buttons. It'll issue a call out that has more information about the meeting. This is useful when you have a lot of meetings and you can't really see the title in graphical mode. You can just tap on it and get the full title here in the call out. And the disclosure arrow here will bring up detail information about the meeting that I'm tapping on. It shows who the attendees are and any description that was specified with when the meeting was created. So if we go back into portrait orientation, we can see more features of MiniECal. We're back in portrait mode here, and we get the opportunity to move on to look at the group view. This is where I think some of the more interesting features of MiniECal reside. So the group view lets you look at a number of agendas from different people in your Exchange system at the same time. To do this, you have to configure a group that specifies who is in the group. Since we're logged in as Bob, we'll set up a group for him that has everybody in his company. So we hit the config screen, and this will show you any groups that you already have defined and give you an opportunity to say how many days ahead you want to look for all the people in this group. But we don't have any groups defined yet, so we'll have to hit the plus key to set up a new one. We'll call this new group Staff. And there are, as I said before, 5 people in this company, so we'll add 5 entries, and we'll start adding them. We've got Bob, we've got Fred, we have Bill, we have Alice, and we have Kim. Oops. We've got Kim. We can save the group. It'll tell us that a group called Staff was saved. And the only thing we have to do now is specify how far in advance we want to look. Let's go 10 days in advance. And as soon as I do that, I can select Staff, say Use Group, and MiniECal will query the Exchange server for the agendas of all of these people for the next 10 days. Okay, so we see that we have Bob's calendar showing, and if you're in the table view mode, just like in MiniECal 1.0, you are able to cycle through all these agendas. So I have Bob here first. If I want to go to see the next person, who's Fred, I can tap on the button on the top right. I can go back to Bob now, go back to Fred, and then I can keep advancing. So we got Bill, we got Alice, and we got Kim. And we can see all of their agendas. What you might notice is Alice's calendar just says busy. This is because Alice hasn't shared her calendar with or given the ability for other people in the company to see her calendar. That's something that's controlled on the Exchange server and is not a feature that can be adjusted from MiniECal. We also see Bill is in the same way. So we can see free busy information at minimum. But if any of these people have granted explicitly rights for the person who's logged in to see their calendar, you'll see the actual information like we see with Fred's calendar. Now where it gets really interesting is when we put this in landscape orientation. When we're looking at a group view and then rotate that device into landscape orientation, we're presented with, again, a graphical view of the agendas, but this time we see one day for all the people in the group. So we see Wednesday, March 6th here, and we see Bob, Fred, Bill, Alice, and Kim. We can see what everybody's doing today, if today is indeed March 6th. We can scroll all the way down to the end. We see what's going on down there. Nobody has anything in the evenings. And we should also note you can scroll all the way to the top, and if anybody has an all-day event, it'll show up here. To look at future days, it's as easy as hitting the buttons on either side of the date. So there's March 7th. We can go 8, 9, and 10, 11, for as many days as we have in the query range. And again, on any of these, you can tap on the meeting, get the call out, and go look at the detailed information about the meeting as well. Hit done, and we're back in group view. Let's come up here and see if we have any all-day events that show up. So there's an all-day event on Saturday the 9th for Alice. Again, she hasn't shared her calendar, so we can't see what that is. But I'm guessing it's some sort of vacation that's being set up because it's on 3 days in a row. Now there we see Bob has an all-day event. He's going on vacation. And since Bob is the person we're logged in as, we can see exactly what that meeting is instead of just free busy. And again, we have the regular agenda side by side right here. We think this is one of the most compelling features of the 1.2 version of MiniECal. Let's go back into portrait orientation and look at the query view. To visit the query view, we just tap on the segmented control down here and click Query. We can configure it to look ahead, we'll say 10 days. And let's query Kim's agenda. As soon as I tap Done, we go off and do the query, and we see what Kim has on her agenda. So we asked for 10 days, so this is the standard list view or table view interface that we've seen in MiniECal 1.0, and it shows for the next 10 days everything that that Kim has. Again, we can go into landscape orientation and see this graphically. When we rotate the device into landscape orientation in query mode, we're presented with a view that's similar to when we looked at our own calendar, only this time it's for somebody else. So here's Kim's agendas for the next 10 days. And again, we can scroll up and down, see what she's got going on. We can also scroll side to side to keep looking, again, for every day that's in the query range. Here's an example of a meeting that gets a little cut off because the title is too long for the bubble. We can tap on that and get the call out, and we can see the full name of the meeting there. And if we're curious who Kim wants to have lunch with, we can tap on the disclosure arrow and see that, oh, it's Kim and Alice. This pretty much summarizes the features that are available in MiniECal 1.2. We hope that you enjoy the added flexibility of looking at these agendas in a graphical mode side by side, and hope to bring you more features in the near future. Thanks for your time.